Okay. So you started out like as a personal trainer. So what was kind of like what kind of made you get involved as a personal trainer?
Um, yeah, I'll try to, I don't want to make this story too short or too long, but I s- started selling weed at 11. I was raised, I guess you could say, on the other side of the tracks,
Hmm.
and progressively did that from like 11 to 17. And when I say progressively, I started with literally like a $20 bag of pot and made like 25 bucks all the way until, when I was 17, I was living on my own and distributing much more than that. And I had gotten arrested, got caught, got arrested. There was this big ordeal with like, this like narc unit and crazy
Yeah.
story. Um, Went to county jail somewhere after my senior year of high school. But prior to that, when I had to quit smoking weed while I was waiting trial, they began to drug test me. And so, like, when I was a pothead and a pot dealer, I was all in there. Like, as much of a specialist you could be in the weed industry, like that was what I was.
Hmm.
Um, and I wasn't super active, but I've always been like lean and kind of like had a six pack at 12 years old or whatever. Um, and so quit smoking weed, long story short, didn't know what else to do with my time. And I started lifting with a couple friends. And then shortly after that is when I went to county jail. And so when I started exercising, I was like, this is amazing. Like I felt so good and self-empowered. At the same time, I'm a senior in high school and I'm starting to build like a chest and some biceps, right? So I just fell in love with the process and would study and read everything I could about it. And then I went to jail like a couple months later.
Hmm.
So in county jail, I would make these workouts up every day. Imagine COVID style at home workouts, right? Because jail is nothing like the movies, where there's like weight benches outside and people like bench pressing. They would kill each other with those things.
Yeah.
Um, so you're in a dorm that's like dimly lit with yellow lights and like a phone booth you can do dips on and little picnic tables you can put your feet underneath and do crunches. And so I would make up these workouts every day. And so I got to a place where after breakfast, guys would come to my room and be like, what's today's workout? And this is long before CrossFit for me. And we would, there was these beds in the room. You could like fold the legs of a bed and
Hmm.
someone lay on the bed and would get underneath it and bench press the bed. Right. So I'm making all these random workouts up. And one day this older gentleman in county was like, Jared, you should be a personal trainer. And obviously I was having like an identity crisis because I had sort of anticipated selling weed, not really my whole life. Like I wasn't that close minded, but it was just, that was my near term plan. I
Yeah.
was really successful for a 17-year-old kid. And so I was on this journey of like, crap, what do I do when I get out of here? Clearly crime isn't cutting it, right? Like in the state of Florida, especially. And so he was like, you should be a personal trainer. And I didn't know what that was. Like I wasn't raised in the gym. I didn't like go to the gym with my dad or something like that.
Hmm.
And so he was like, yeah, you get paid to work people out. And I was like, what? Like that's a dream job. And right when you hear that as a kid, you think I get paid to work out with people. And it's clearly not that,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah. Yeah.
close. And so when I got out, I literally, like, I remember it was probably the third thing I did. Like my mom picked me up and we ate Denny's. And then I went home and plugged in the router and, asked Jeeves like how to be a personal trainer, right?
Gosh,
Because
that's old school. Jeez, jeez.
yeah, I know there's a ton of people who will have no idea what that is.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, so I literally was like, how to be a personal trainer. I remember it was two things. One, get CPR certified. Okay, cool. I paid $50 at Winter Haven Hospital to become CPR certified. And then I pursued a personal training certification. And then, like, also, this is back in 2008. So the economy had just sort of crashed. But also, like, you couldn't apply online everywhere quite yet. Like, this is
Hmm.
just a different time. And so I was going door to door with a resume trying to get a job. And so long, like I was going to say, to make a long story short, but that's not true. Um, I went to a Gold's Gym, and really the chicken and egg conundrum kept pushing me back. Like, hey, we love how passionate you are, but you don't have any experience. And I'm like, well, how do I get experience if no one will hire me? However, I had a ton of sales experience because while I was selling pot, I was part-time telemarketing at a place called IUPA, the
Hmm.
International Union of Police Associations. And so I had a ton of sales experience and, of course, with my criminal background. So I was hired as a salesperson at a Gold's Gym instead of a personal trainer, and ended up doing some training on the side at the gym, like not, whatever, not like hired for it. And then eventually became a sales manager, eventually became a GM of that gym, went on to become like a personal training director, and then like an area manager and fun stuff like that. So that's what ultimately got me into the business.
Okay. I heard in a podcast that you typically for your personal training style, you added, you pretty much doubled the price because you thought like with your experience and your expertise, you're worth that amount. And typically for me, when I was personal training, like they had a salesperson there and they would like say, hey, you'll pay for what, like $50 for a half an hour, and like they get like half of it. And
Yeah.
so, because obviously, like you want to get as many clients as you can, and then, but like, what was your thought through the whole process of like doubling your price to, to do what you wanted to do?
Yeah. So kind of to give a little bit more context to that story. So from 2008 to 2015, I had progressed in like management roles at health clubs and ended up being a relatively successful like area operator for a chain of health clubs, and never quite got to just personal train. So, but when I was doing some stuff on the side, I was relatively cheap, like 40, 50, $60 an hour. So that was when I was real young, and it was just like whatever people would pay, I would train them for.
Mm-hmm.
But then as I matured as a professional and continued to educate myself, both through experience personally and professionally, but also like continued education through NASM master training courses and all that fun stuff. I spent a ton of time, energy, and money on continued education. When I left the chain of health club, I left the health club industry to become a independent personal trainer. I was much more matured at that point and much more experienced. And
Mm-hmm.
so I felt because of my education and my experience alone, I'm worth more than what plenty of people are charging, in my opinion, at the time, but also because of my passion and dedication, because just something about me is like, I'm a learner. And I think that's a superpower as a personal trainer, because you can have a generalized personal training certification and still be a great trainer.
Yeah.
But, when I have a 17-year-old kid that tore his ACL playing high school football, but he wants to go on to play college football, he needs to rehabilitate, re-strengthen, gain symmetry back in the left leg as it relates to the right leg, which wasn't damaged, right? Versus my next client an hour later that it has onset, Alzheimer's, right? So like those are two totally different people. Generalized personal training certifications definitely help you with those people, right? Like we have a periodization model through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, and of course through CrossFit, there's a plethora of information.
Mm-hmm.
But because I would have this 17-year-old and I would just be burying myself in the books on what's the best way to approach training this kid, right? Like, what does it look like for a kid to have a torn ACL versus a grown person? And then having this person with Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's, like, what does this training model look like for him? I need to challenge his brain and his body at the same time. And so because I was so passionate about learning those things, I knew that was worth more, because I knew a ton of other trainers that weren't anywhere near as passionate about the people or the process of learning. And so naturally I was like, I'm just going to charge more because I feel like I'm worth more, but also because I wanted to be able to justify helping other people. And I never really liked discounting my service. For example, let's say my dad needed personal training, or a broke friend of mine that's gained a ton of weight since high school or something like that, right? Instead of me being like, yeah, $25 an hour, just come on, I would just say, I'm going to train you for free once a week because
Yeah.
I'm charging $100 an hour for everybody else. So I'm positioning myself financially in such a way where I have X amount of time to serve the community for those ad hoc opportunities like that present themselves. Whereas if somebody's charging $60 an hour and somebody really needs some help, they're like, man, I wish I could help you, but I don't have the time or the money. For me, however, I could work 30 hours a week training, make $3,000 a week at $100 an hour. And at 25, years old, living in Lakeland, Florida, where the cost of living is relatively low,
Mm-hmm.
like that's really, really, really good money,
It
right? So
is.
like
Yeah.
a friend is like, hey, I really need some help. Then I'm saying, hey, I'll train you for free, but you have to show up once a week. If you don't show up one time, like I'm done. Like I'm not going to do this free thing on and off. So yeah, anyways, that was my mindset towards that, is like, price yourself where you're confident that you deserve, like the value that you feel like you present to the world and to this particular audience, so that you can afford to serve where people can't afford you. Um, which also leads to, and I know you didn't really ask about this, is like, okay, well, the next question is, how do I get to a place where I value myself there? Invest in yourself, right?
Mhm.
Like, I spent so much time, money, and energy on learning about my trade to where I was confident enough. And there's people that are like, Jared, I'm not that confident. Okay, well, learn more, get some more practice, get your reps in. Like, it took time for me to get there. I didn't just like get my cert and say, all right, well, I'm being $100 an hour now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For me, so I was personal training for, gosh, for a very long time. Like even in the Air Force, I was training like 150 people, and obviously it was like I was getting paid in the Air Force, but like not like $100 per hour. But it was like so hard working at like a global gym that, like, they took a percentage off, and it's just like, yeah, I want to make more money, but obviously there's other people that are pretty cheap, but they just want to get, personal training. So you're kind of like, you're like, okay, maybe I'll go for like this rate,
Mhm.
instead of like a higher up rate. And then it's at to the point where like I realized I'm like, if I need to make $60,000, I need to work 6 days a week, 12 hours, no breaks. And I'm like, this is not, I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. So I left doing it. But I love personal training. Like I would like listen to podcasts, read books, like all that stuff. And I wish I can go back, but I don't even think it's even possible for me now.
Yeah. No, I feel you. And it's like, for me, it's a numbers game. And my way
Hmm.
that my brain works, which is kind of overwhelming sometimes, is like, I quantify everything. And math is just like constantly my brain, there's numbers everywhere.
Yep.
And so the way that I looked at personal training was like, I had this fear, of course, of like, what if I'm too expensive? But at the end of the day, even let's just say Lakeland, for example, there's, I don't know, 300,000 people that live in Lakeland, Florida. In order to be a full-time personal trainer, realistically, full-time in the training world is like 35 hours a week, because you have program design, you have reschedules, you have people that go late, whatever, right? So 35 hours a week, which the average session's half an hour. So that's 70 sessions a week on average. The average client is 2 times a week. So the average client is 1 hour a week, right? So I needed 35 clients to technically be full time. And so when I think about that, I'm like, well, there's 300,000 people that live in this city, and I need 35 to be successful and like full time. That changes my perspective, because if I'm at a price where like some people are saying no, well, at least I have 299,970
Yeah.
more people to go. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yep.
And so instead of like the rat race of trying to keep up with the $50 trainer, that obviously is more affordable for many more people, I would have that higher rate, but also have this realistic mindset of like, okay, high standards, but there's so many people here. That's like, if you have an expensive steak restaurant and you're scared that Outback is $20 a steak and you're 50, people are going to buy that $50 steak.
Hmm.
But the most important thing was, I knew how to sell, like, especially in the fitness industry. Um, I'm pretty confident in saying that I'm a hell of a salesperson when it comes to fitness related stuff like gym memberships, personal training,
Yep.
because I believe in it so much. And I learned from years of experience how to build so much value, like from working in the global gym for so long. It's like, you know, it's survival of the fittest in that industry. Like, you either make nothing in that industry or you make a good amount because you're good, and you have to learn how to sink or swim. And so I learned how to sell to all different walks of life at a high rate. Like even the health clubs, they're 70, $80 an hour for training, despite what the trainers are making from that, which is not very much.
No.
So I had already learned how to like build value in sale long before asking for money. And so like a lot of the reason for my success as a trainer was, once I got them signed up, I was a good trainer, but I was also really, really good at selling people on the process. Like they would come in, do a consultation, I'd walk them through the gym, build a short workout based on their goals that day, but also based on their goals long term, give them a little bit of endorphins that first day, but also a challenge to know that they need a trainer. So a lot of psychology involved in that first consultation, and my closing rate was like 90+%. So like, you have to learn how to build value, and even maybe recognize that this is like a master class on selling personal training. So I'll wrap it up here, but like, recognize, yes, I do have expensive rates. And, in Lakeland, Florida, again, where the cost of living was so low, I had a sticker shock for many people when I was like, yep, it's $100 an hour. However, I usually recommend half an hour. So that's going to be 55, half an hour. Twice a week, it goes down to 50 an hour. This is what I recommend. It's $50 a session, 2 times a week. That's $100 a week. It's $433 a month. We bill monthly. You don't have to pay, for 20 sessions up front. What card would you like to put on file? But long before I do all that, I say, what are your goals? Okay, why do you have that goal? And we identify the X factor, peel the layers behind the X factor, right? Some people say they want to lose 10 pounds, but in reality, Susie's soccer mom went to put on her favorite pair of jeans, but she hasn't wore them since last summer, and they don't fit anymore because she gained 10 pounds through the winter. And she's about to have a girls' night, and she's embarrassed because she can't wear her favorite jeans. And then she comes to the gym the next day and says, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds. And I'm like, well, I know that you want to lose 10 pounds, but why? And so getting her to express, honestly, I felt insecure because I went on a girls' night and couldn't wear my favorite jeans. That's why. Like 10 pounds is irrelevant.
Yeah.
But you want to wear your favorite pair of jeans. Let's focus on that, right? What have you been doing? I haven't been doing anything for years. Okay. That's okay too. Let's start slow, right? So like if you can look at the psychological element of why people walk into the gym that day and help them associate that with the work required, because it's going to be hard work. That's what I did, and I loved it. I miss it.
Damn, I should have talked to you like years ago.